A multi-billion-dollar company went bankrupt today. So we're going to talk about that along with Nestle, self-driving cars, Google, Apple, our stock market winners and losers, and a bunch more. But anyways, let's get started with this bankruptcy story. Okay, so there was a giant automotive parts company called Takata, I think it's based out of Japan, that officially filed for bankruptcy today. Now, this has been coming for a long time. I'm going to tell you why. It's been coming for a few months, essentially 2 years, but in the past month or two, investors have been realizing that this company is going to go bankrupt. So let me get started here. Takata, automotive parts company. They essentially, a large portion of their business comes from making airbags. So they supply airbags to some of the biggest car manufacturers in the world, and they are probably the biggest, or one of the biggest, if not the biggest, airbag company in the world. So what happened here was that a couple years ago, they started noticing that there was some defects in their airbags. They started noticing this. However, they were covering this up to regulators around the world. They were covering this up saying, oh, everything's fine for the most part. They weren't giving them direct information to the regulators so that they wouldn't have to recall their airbags so that they can actually make some more money and just keep making more profits. Here's what happened. Over the course of the next few years, there was a bunch of news articles saying about how certain car accidents were causing deaths that shouldn't have caused deaths. And so why was this? It was because the airbags involved in these car crashes, they were exploding and shooting metal shards into people's faces and essentially through their head. I know it's a little bit graphic to think about, but these metal shards were essentially exploding because these airbags were defective. And so what did they notice? They were all from the same company called Takata. So allegedly, this may have directly caused 17 deaths and 100 major injuries that potentially may not have occurred if this company were to have just recalled their cars. And so this got out to the regulators, to the government, and eventually they were fined $1 million just off the, or $1 billion off the bat. So they were fined $1 billion. Now normally a company of this size, a multi-billion-dollar company, they can take that hit and move on. However, they, on top of the fine, were forced recently in the past year or two to recall 100 billion cars with their, or 100 million cars with their airbags. 100 million cars have been recalled over the past few years. So what did this do? This caused $10 billion in additional liabilities and expenses that this company did not foresee coming. So they have officially filed for bankruptcy because they cannot pay that $10 billion. And so what they've been trying to do everything recently. So they filed for bankruptcy, and they also announced that they are selling all of their company assets to a company called Key Safety Systems. They're selling $1.59 billion in assets to a safety systems company. So they filed for bankruptcy today. This is some perspective for you. This is by far the biggest manufacturing bankruptcy in Southeast Asia, like ever. It's not even close. In the past 80 years, it's this company, and then the next closest one is like 4 times smaller than them, than Takata. And so this is pretty massive news for this one company. Now here's what I want to take from this. So 2 things. Is this a sign of bad things to come for the stock market, or the Japanese or Asian stock markets? I'd say not. I mean, this is a scandal. This is something that is caused by some decisions at the very top. This is them being punished for making poor decisions with their company. And that's what it is. So this is not a sign of a crash. However, the other part I want to talk about. So again, it's not a crash. Don't be worried about the stock market, crashing because of this in the next few days or few weeks. And they aren't, a massive, they are one of the biggest companies in the world, but they're not Apple tanking, right? They're not Amazon. So I'm not worried about that. I just want to talk about I'm fairly conservative on a lot of things. I understand running a business, but there are certain ethical lines that as a business person, as a business owner, I don't want to cross. And these people seem to have crossed their line. Now, I don't know how much information I got was true or false about this, but if what they did was true, And they covered this up, and they knew about the defective airbags and refused to report it to recall so that they can make some extra money. They deserve to go to jail, not just a fine, jail time. They inadvertently may have allegedly caused the deaths of 17 people, hundreds injured, just because they wanted to make some extra money. So that is a line that I just cannot cross. I'm fairly conservative on a lot of things. A lot of things that bosses, employers do, entrepreneurs do, I completely understand. Meanwhile, a lot of employees or people that lean pretty left, they don't understand them and they disagree with them. But I usually agree with a lot of the things that entrepreneurs and employers do and investors do. However, just doing something like this is too far if they did it, okay? So I just wanted to talk about that today. It was a big bankruptcy that happened today. Now, funny enough, so I saw that their stock went up 45% today. It was up 45% today, although it's kind of fluctuating right now after hours. But it was up 45% today, and I was wondering why this was. I was like, how could this be up 45%? There was no good news that came out about it today. Here's what happened. Was that their stock is only worth $1 right now. And so they're very close to a penny stock. So it can go up 45% just from a few massive trades. Now they're still a high volume shares company. Their stock's just worth $1.40 at this very second. Keep in mind that in 2008 or 2011, each stock was worth like $40 or somewhere around there, around $40. Now it's not giving me the exact numbers here, but what I'm trying to say here is that like this company has just absolutely tanked. I mean, the share prices were about $40 a few years ago. Now they're $1.40. So I wanted to mention that today. Takata, it was a massive bankruptcy. I hope everyone can keep their jobs there. Now here's the thing: is that this is a company that has 60,000 employees in it, 60,000 worldwide. And so if this company goes bankrupt and fails, it'll be a few years before they officially shut down. If they do shut down, I don't know if they're going to. If they're not, we'll see what happens. However, 60,000 people, that's a lot. That affects a lot of people's and a lot of families' lives, especially because this is in Asia too. And they really, really need jobs, like stable jobs over there, right? And if you lose your job, even if you are severely underpaid compared to the United States, I mean, that can be really like life and death thing, like not be able to feed yourself kind of thing. So I hope this all goes okay for all the employees. Obviously, I always hope companies like this rebound, but I hope that people at the top resign and get fired for this, because that's the thing where I just cannot tolerate you just covering stuff up to make an extra little bit of money. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next topic here. Hopefully that wasn't too much of a downer. Let's move on to some self-driving car news. So there's this rental car company. I think it's the biggest in the world, actually. It's called Avis Budget Group Inc. Funny name. If you just called it Avis, I would have been like, okay, that could be a car company or a rental car company. But Avis Budget Group Inc., they're an investor company. They're an investment company that has bought the biggest and owns the biggest rental car company in the world. At least one of them. And so that's what they are. And the big news that came from them today is that they are partnered with Google. They announced a partnership today with Google to store, service, do all the oil changes for all of Google's current self-driving cars. Which, for a lot of people, they're like, oh my God, like this is going to be great. This is a massive deal. But then Google has 600 self-driving cars right now, which is, some people think that's a great number, but in terms of affecting the bottom line of a billion-dollar company, maybe even a multi-billion-dollar company. I don't know what their market cap's worth. Maybe I should check that right now, actually. So their market cap is $2.4 billion, and they're servicing 600 extra cars for 2 years. So this, for a minimum of 2 years, it's a multi-year agreement. And then they're going to see how that goes. And so what happened today was that the stock shot up 15% after this announcement. And I was going, wait a second here. 600 cars, maybe you service them, what, 10 grand a year? That's what, $6 million bucks? Is the math on that correct? About $6 million you're adding in revenue? Maybe 10 million, maybe 20 million, but you're a $2.4 billion company. That's not going to affect you very much whatsoever. And so here's why the stock shot up today after that. It's because of the future potential. So Google, for those of you that don't know, they're getting into the self-driving car business, obviously. Everyone knows that. They've also semi-partnered with Lyft, the competitor for Uber. So what Lyft and Google, there's this giant conspiracy theory that why the stock shot up so drastically today. It was because, well, if Google becomes a self-driving car company and owns all these self-driving cars and sells them off, and maybe they become a taxi company that partners with Lyft, maybe this Avis budget group, who is servicing 600 cars, maybe they will service the 60,000 or the 100,000 cars in the future. And that's why the stock went up today. It's a little bit of extra revenue. However, I think that it shot up even more than it should have today because of the future potential of working with Google's self-driving car branch. By the way, that self-driving car branch of Google is actually called Waymo. And so I didn't even know that until today. I've heard of Waymo before, but I didn't know it was Google. I didn't know that it was a branch of Google. So that was some pretty big news today that I wanted to talk about. They were a massive stock market winner today. I guess that we should move on to stock market winners and losers today. But I do want to talk about Apple in a second. So, we'll go stock market winners and losers. So the winners today were essentially everyone. Everyone except tech. The tech sector was down 0.59%, and Energy Man again is down 0.24%. So again, I'm looking at oil and energy stocks right now. And tech was down today, but tech's so volatile these days. Tech's could shoot up 1% tomorrow, then go down 3% the next day. So who knows? But essentially, everyone else had at least an average or a good day. I mean, utilities performed the best today. They're up almost 0.8%. Consumer staples, they're up 0.4%. Let's see, financials up 0.5%, materials up 0.3%, real estate up 0.5%. So all in all, it was a good day, apart from the tech sector, which is unfortunately the biggest sector. So I'm guessing a lot of people lost money today. But we'll get to some specific stocks here because you guys like to hear about those. So Amazon down 1% today, Google down 1.5%, Nasdaq's an index, we'll get to that. Tesla down 1.55%. Nvidia down 1%. So all the tech stocks were fairly poor today. Apple down 0.3%. We're going to get to that. Facebook down 1%. One company that had a really good day today was actually Walmart. They're up 0.9% today. So they had a pretty good day. But all in all, the losers were tech, and all the winners were just not in tech. That's essentially a summary of what happened today. But I do want to talk about two more specific companies. I just want to talk about Apple for a second here. Now, this doesn't have to do with their stock. This has to do with something that I actually just saw recently for the first time. Their augmented reality has come a long way. Their technology for augmented reality is now on your phone. And maybe I'll show a video clip of this, but there are video clips coming out of people making their own augmented reality app with their iPhone or iPad or iOS device. And this is absolutely unbelievable. I've seen this zombie walking around, and it looked great. I mean, you know what? I think Apple could be coming ahead in the augmented reality space simply because of this. Here's what they did: smart business decision, which is something that Apple they've done a lot of, but they haven't done this specific thing before. They essentially released an open source augmented reality development kit. Meaning that any fan, any consumer of an iOS device can make their own augmented reality app, which is really, really cool. Usually Apple's really closed off. Apple usually doesn't like you editing stuff and jailbreaking stuff and letting you, mod certain apps or do whatever you want with your iPhone. They like to have complete control over it because that's how they make the most money. That's why they're the most valuable company in the world right now. But they did this, and guess what's happening? There's a bunch of people in the last few weeks have been making their own augmented reality apps for the iPhone and for the iPad. So it's really cool. And what do you guys think of augmented reality? And do you think that Apple could potentially beat other companies like Google and Microsoft at this in terms of owning the augmented reality space? Leave a comment down below. And we're going to move on to one last thing I want to talk about today, which is Nestle. So a lot of the stocks that went up today were just up for reasons that I can't really explain, apart from investors just having a bullish day today and buying a lot of stock because it's just a Monday. But one stock that went up today for legitimate reasons was Nestle. So they were up about 3.5% today, which is pretty massive for a multi-billion-dollar company. And so they were up today simply because a hedge fund bought out $3.5 billion from the company, which, let's see, Nestle's market cap. Let me take a quick look here. Nestle stock, let's see what their market cap is. It's going to be hundreds of billions, right? So this one hedge fund bought out roughly almost 2% of Nestle today, which is pretty big. So Nestle's market cap is about $260 billion, fluctuates a little bit, $260 billion. And so yeah, the stock went up. Actually, stock is up 4.3% today, just because a hedge fund manager decided to buy it. So again, that's probably one of the biggest stock market winners today, if not the biggest, apart from, you know, Avis and a bunch of smaller cap companies that shot up today. And yeah, so that's going to wrap it up today. It's a fairly quick video because to be honest, there wasn't a lot of big movers and shakers today. There wasn't any giant Amazon Whole Foods news today. It was just a big bankruptcy today and some self-driving car news. That's what I wanted to talk about today. So anyways, I'd like to thank you very much for watching. You can check out my stock market program in the link below to see what my last investment was. I actually bought, my trade went through today. My last trade went through today, another 1,000 something bucks I put in today. So I think that my portfolio for this new account that I've been kind of trialing with on my website, I think it's up to like, I think I put in 5,500 bucks in the last month or so. So it's been going pretty well. So if you want to check that out, links in the description below. I'm going to keep investing and just tracking what happens to my portfolio over time, and just, you know, maybe you guys can follow it, use it for your portfolio, use it to make you guys some money. So anyways, thank you very much for watching. You're all very beautiful people, and I'll see you guys in the next video.